Good evening and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View. Good evening to everyone in the chat as per normal. Tonight we're going to be talking about the new focus on scouting and recruitment of younger players who will or have gone to be full internationals, who will go on to be full internationals. That's the outlook that Celtic want. There will be a little bit of a change in the way that Celtic look at players, and I'm going to tell you why. Over the last week or so, we've lost Paul Tisdale, and Paul Tisdale was the manager that brought in players that weren't really up to it. But over the last week or so, just over a week, there's a new man on the scene, and the new kid on the block, as they like to say. And it is James Bell Walker. Now, we've spoken about him before. He was the senior international scout and recruitment professional at Chelsea. He's now at Celtic. He comes out of Manchester. But one of the interesting parts on his CV, that he is a specialism in emerging talent. He has a specialism in emerging talent. And that emerging talent directly involved in the scouting and recruitment of young players who have gone on to be full senior internationals and established Premier League players. I think some of us kind of missed that bit out, especially since we're now looking at a defender that we're being highly interested in, a defender that isn't an internationalist as yet, but has aspirations to join Alistair Johnson in the Canadian team. And when you look at the data from the player in question, this comes from Data Boys on Twitter. Now, the player in question, Nico, he has a accurate long pass percentage of 78%. That's a change to the way that Celtic play football. That's not passing out from the back. That's not side-to-side stuff. This goes back to a bygone era of Celtic playing, having a defender that can whip out a diagonal ball. One of the best players that I remember doing it was Alan Stubbs. Alan Stubbs could hit a diagonal ball out for defence, right up to a winger. That's proper Martin O'Neill style football. And a defender that has a pass accuracy of 78% for doing that kind of thing has to be a half-decent player. He's accurate, and this is accurate long passes, accurate short passes and medium passes. He also sits at 78%. And then when you look at interceptions, as defenders need to do, they need to intercept the ball in the defence. They need to stop goals going in. He's got 100%. With that one, defensive duels won, he sits at 79% for that, and progressive runs, he sits at 74%. So everything that you want from a defender statistically, this guy seems to have it in abundance. The only thing he doesn't have is a high price tag. He's a full internationalist, and he's a big name that people want to come to Celtic. Martin O'Neill said that in one of his interviews in the last 24 hours, he did say that he did not think that Celtic were going to break any records. They're not going to break any transfer records in the next couple of weeks. But what he did say, he says, I'm hoping that I'll know better in the next couple of days on the amount of players that we can get in. I'm not expecting a spending spree in January, but insist that the club must provide backing in the transfer market if they're serious about salvaging the season. We're not going to break any sorts of transfer records. I'm sure that will not be the case. In other words, with the new guy that's came in, this James Bell Walker, and for what he's done at his previous club, this is definitely the way that Celtic are going to go forward. Gone are the days of trying to spend 10, 15 million on players and with the fact that, yeah, they might turn out good. I think that people will see this as going. A lot of Celtic fans will see this as a backward step. A lot of people will see it as bargain basement stuff again by Celtic. But in the current climate of the club, and in the fact that we're not in the Champions League, the fact that we've took a £40 million hit this season, it's a market that can still be expensive when you look at the price of some of these up-and-coming talent players. I mean, Arne Engels was an up-and-coming talent at 11 million. Some Celtic fans say that that's the price that you pay, But if we can go out and we can source players from around the globe, which this guy seemingly has done in the past, and even picking out international players that have went on to be English Premier League players. Ultimately, we're a selling club. Ultimately, Celtic Football Club will always be about picking up talent from wherever around the globe, bringing it to Celtic with the promise of the player getting sold on in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, for vast amounts of money. It's the way that the club is. That won't change. The direction of the football club will not change just because we've had a few changes at the top of the tree. Now, Martin O'Neill, talking about stuff at the top of the tree, wants to get a meeting with the Green Brigade, the fan base, and the hierarchy, and he wants everyone back in. He wants to hear the noise for the boys of the full stadium rocking for Baz. Engels is a failure in my opinion at 11 million. Well, that's everyone's allowed their opinion, mate. 11 million may be a drop in the ocean to some teams. You get some clubs that sit with over 100 million on the bench, and players that can't get it. So a lot of people can't stand Engels. I shouldn't have mentioned Engels. It's about the same as Adam Ida. I mean, we sold Adam Ida as lost, but I think that there was a player in Adam Ida in Scottish football. But anyway, we move on from that, and we talk about the future of Celtic Football Club and the fact that James Bell Walker has been brought in to Celtic. I think, without reading between the lines, I think as soon as Celtic brought in this guy, people are saying he was brought in by Tisdale. I don't think he was brought in by Tisdale. He was brought in to take over from Tisdale's job, heading up the recruitment department. Tisdale was there in charge of total football matters, but this guy's been brought in to be head of the recruitment department. Until Celtic tell us otherwise, I think that we should just go down the road of he's not leaving a job if he's the top guy at Chelsea for what his CV says, and the senior international scout and recruitment professional. I think it's been quite a coup to get him at Celtic, and let's just hope that he becomes a success and he gets the type of players that we need in at club. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of players, big clubs sit with big amount of players on the benches, big expensive players on the benches, players that Celtic could never afford, and paid over £100,000 a week to sit on the bench. But we at Celtic complain about £11 million Arne Engels. But and again, Engels could be the next Alan Stubbs. Took him some time to get going at Celtic. Yes, Stephen Sloan says, my conversation with Dermot Desmond, another long conversation, is Martin O'Neill's words yesterday. What do you make of that comment? It tells me that Dermot trusts Martin O'Neill. It tells me that's what it says to me. Will you come back and manage the club for us to the end of the season? Yes. Are we getting money to spend? Yeah, we'll back you. That's it. That's Dermot trusts him to come in and do the job. Martin O'Neill doesn't have to have long conversations about him with Dermot Desmond. I think that he's a man that knows how to do the job. He proved it in his last interim term. Let's not get down the conversation about there was one comment said, why did we allow Martin O'Neill to leave? for the betterment of the football club, it was the correct decision to try and bring in a long-term manager. It's just unfortunate that Wilfred Nancy didn't live up to expectations, and Wilfred Nancy was a board choice. He was Tisdale put the name forward of Wilfred Nancy to the board, and then they go to Dermot and say, "This is the guy we've picked." So we've spoke about that before, and it says, what Celtic man would not trust Martin exactly. He also said signings weren't discussed. Of course, it's not, because Dermot's not. He's not going to be talking about signings. I mean, that's out with his remit as majority owner. He just makes the big decisions. Right, yous have fucked up. I'm going to get a manager in. That's it at the end of the day. That's what happens when you own businesses and you employ minions, and that's all that the Celtic board are. They're just minions. I wonder which one's Kevin with the one eye. But yeah, the Celtic board are just minions. They're clowns. We know this. The fact that it came out at the summer that they have to email Dermot Desmond and ask for permission to spend anything over X amount of money. It's ridiculous. As ridiculous as that is, I think that there's a lot of other things that need to change in the background of the club. But with the conversation or lack of conversation between Dermot and Martin O'Neill, it's two men that have a mutual respect for each other in high regards, the highest level of regards, and don't question each other's motives. That's what I would take from it. Martin O'Neill, Dermot knows Martin O'Neill would not turn down the job. I mean, I think he would get a shock more than anything if he phoned up Martin O'Neill and said, "Look, Martin, I know we just let you go, but can you come in at the end of the season? I'm in that same coffee shop, fucking sitting eating breakfast in Coatbridge." He's sitting eating breakfast and he's like, "Oh, fucking not again, man. Seriously. What is it with you and breakfast phone calls, mate? No, just not happening this time. Nah, no doing it. It's never going to happen, is it?" Martin O'Neill's going, "Yeah, okay, damn it, let's do it." And that's when you have that kind of mutual respect between people. It's like having a best mate. I've got mates that I've known since I was in primary school. I don't see them for years. Speak to them through social media now and again. Speak to them through WhatsApp or whatever. And then when you meet up, you start conversations like you've never walked away from each other. You've never went and lived your own separate lives and done each things. You talk about things that, how's this, and you get back into it. And it's as if you've never spent years apart. I've got mates like that I still do that to this day and age. And that's the way that I see Dermot and Martin O'Neill. But anyway, we move on from that because the new scouting and focus on younger players. Will that invigorate the Celtic fan base? We dodged bullets with Kitvergarden and Dolberg. Yeah, it seems so. Do you want to come back, Martin? What's the transfer budget? Budget explains yes. Pretty much as simple as that, isn't it? I don't even think it went like that. Any news on a striker? Not that I've looked at tonight. I've been kind of busy with my mother here at the moment. So yeah, I've not really been looking at Celtic stuff. It's good to just take time out and just not even think about it. Especially after the 33 days we had under a previous manager. If Neil and Desmond said, "I want this forward at 10 million, we will not spend 10 million. Not a chance." Martin O'Neill said that. He doesn't expect us to break transfer records. And this guy that's been brought in, James Bell Walker, he's not been brought in with, as well as building, read what it says, as well as building and rebuilding of elite senior squads and winning every available club trophy. That's not a guy that's been brought in to say, right, let's go and buy 4 players at 10 million a pop to win the league. This is the guy that's been brought in and says, right, let's establish Let's establish a squad of players and let's rebuild this squad, because Celtic are going to go through a rebuild this summer, a massive rebuild again. You know, we may bring in players for a loan period to get us over the line this season. Martin O'Neill may decide to bring in some players permanently. What length of contract that they're then given is a difficult one, because you may have a manager that comes in the summer and say, I don't really fancy you as a player, mate. Where does that leave the club? So Martin O'Neill and James Bell Walker will have to make decisions in the short term to bring in players that will get us into the position, but you know, building and rebuilding of elite senior squads, winning every available club trophy. You don't write that kind of thing on LinkedIn. It's not Facebook or Twitter where you could just write any old pish. You get held to account on LinkedIn. You know, that's where the professionals all hang out. So you're not expecting him to make blasé statements. Most definitely not. And that's the way that I see that Celtic are going forward. Some may say that it's a period of managed decline. Is it a period? There's an interesting one. Is it a period of managed decline now, or is it a complete? There's a poll question for tonight. Well, we've got 480 on. There's been 1,000 on already. Rebuild year. This will be an interesting one. Oh. Is this now a rebuild year or managed decline? Interesting. Interesting. Let's see what you feel about that one. Is this now a rebuild year or is it managed decline? Can forget about everything that's happened in the past. Look at where the squad are at the moment. Look where we are in the league. League position doesn't lie. You know, position doesn't lie at all. We're third as it stands tonight. We're third in the league. So managed decline. You're still at the top of the table, but you reduce the wage bill. It's a difficult one. Do you know the managed decline? We've seen it before. We've seen it under Gordon Strachan. We've seen it under Neil Lennon. We've seen it under Ronnie Dyler. But we kept on winning. We were never third in the league under Ronnie Dyler at the halfway point or towards the end of the season. So it's a very interesting way of re-looking at Celtic and maybe refocusing ourselves as fans. Danny Cassie's in the house. There we go. Danny Cassie is in the house. A lot of people have been asking for Danny over the last couple of nights, and he is back in the house. So, yeah, tell me your thoughts on, is it managed decline this season now, this year? Because you know it's not just about what happens in this window; it's about what happens in the summer. And I think I'm going down the road of, personally, I think it's a rebuild season. It's a rebuild year, not season. The seasons, you can't rebuild this season. You know, we can just fight on, and that's all we've got to do. We've got to fight and make sure that we can become respectable again in terms of results going forward. As it stands, we've had 117 votes, 118 votes, 77% say rebuild, 23% say managed decline. It's interesting. Right, I'm going to jump into some of the comments this evening. A fake Celtic fan would doubt Martin. This is true. If O'Neill wins this league, he will need a statue outside. Yes, he will. That. Having incompetent minions is the problem. It is very incompetent minions, but they're getting away with it. I'm good at. First of Feb. I'm going to jump through these because it's just a bunch of people saying hello. 11 million for Engels was stupid to pay. He didn't have a approved track record before he signed for Celtic. When you look at the price of players being sold across Europe and in the English Premier League, £11 million for a player of Arne Engels' standard is quite common in the topper end of any league. So saying that it was stupid money to pay is 9 million for a striker that you could have got for 3 million if you'd put in a loan to buy clause, because everyone said at the time that the player was only worth £3 million. But because a certain Kyogo Furuhashi got injured, his the price tag was pushed up. Martin O'Neill likes to play the dafty, but he's much smarter than he lets on. Of course he does. Backward step, if we're honest. I'm not all that ecstatic. A backward step. You sometimes the situation that we've been put in as a club. It's a difficult one because we brought in Wilfred Nancy on the hope that he would be successful. No one envisaged Wilfred Nancy losing the games that he did. That wasn't part of the plan. You know, Martin O'Neill came in, steadied the ship, got us back to winning ways, scoring goals, shored up the defence. Wilfred Nancy could have came in and said, "Do you know what? I'm going to be intelligent here. I'm not going to change the team too much." But instead, he went, "We've got a game every 3 days. I'm going to change everything, and I'm not going to motivate you at half time. You're going to have to get it, sort it yourself. You're fully fledged players. You're adults. Work it out. This is the way I want you to play. You sort your shit out on the pitch." That's pretty much what Wilfred Nancy said. But if Martin O'Neill had stayed and we had won some of those games, we could have lost some of those games that we lost. We could have won some. It would still be a season of rebuild. There are still a number of unanswered questions at Celtic about players that want to be. There are still a number of unanswered questions about the fact that Martin O'Neill let it slip. No one knew about Wolfsburg. I mean, we've got to January, and Brendan Rodgers never mentioned Daizen Maeda and Wolfsburg. It was the biggest secret in Scottish football. No media person knew that it was Wolfsburg that was in for Daizen Maeda. That's how secretive Celtic have been. But Martin O'Neill let it slip. Why did Martin O'Neill let it slip? He's a coy old fella. And do you know, was he putting a little bit of pressure on Daizen Maeda to just blaze cards on the line? Maybe it's Martin O'Neill's way of just going, do you know what? I'm going to let the fans know that you were unhappy. You know, everyone knows that you were almost going to leave. Nobody knows the real story. So I'm just going to drop it in there. Dyson was almost away to Wolfsburg. Oh, did you not know that? Have I just let that slip? Of course you knew what you were saying, Martin. Of course you were. And then for Martin O'Neill to turn around and say, "I'm going to speak to his agent to see where his head lies." Martin O'Neill knows exactly what he's doing. Martin O'Neill's not stupid. And then for Martin O'Neill to say, "I'll come back and tell you on Friday exactly what's happening." He's just put the pressure on Daizen Maeda. He's took the pressure away from himself. He's took the pressure away of having to explain why Daizen Maeda's not playing 100% or even 90%. And he's put all the pressure on the player. You know, it's on you now, son. You wanted away, your agent got you Wolfsburg, it fell through, didn't happen. You packed up, you wanted away, didn't happen, you've not been performing. Well, do you know the cat's out the bag? He's a coy old fella, that Martin O'Neill, isn't he? But a backward step this season? Martin O'Neill a backward step? Or are you just talking about this season, this year in a whole? I think that we're in a position where if it's either a rebuild or managed decline, it was. I don't think that there was anything intentional because we all thought that Brendan Rodgers would be here to the end of the season. Well, a lot of us thought that Brendan. No one expected Brendan Rodgers to quit. Brendan Rodgers stood in front of the cameras. 200%, I'll be here at the end of the season. I left early before. This is Brendan Rodgers' own words. I left early before. It didn't work out too well the last time. I'm not going to do it again. Um, the board are a bunch of charlatans. They're not backing me. And then he goes, just sell Adam Ida. Come on. The man was a charlatan and talking all sorts of nonsense. But, however, we are where we are. And as it stands on the 7th of January, is it a rebuild over the next 12 months or is it a case of we're going into managed decline? I think it's a rebuild because when you're bringing in another new manager in the summer, the new manager will want to bring in his own players, have his own style of football, want to bring in his own team. Hopefully he retains quite a lot of the... I hope the next manager that comes in sees the good work that Mark Fotheringham was doing at Celtic. And I would even say Sean Maloney. Because when you look at the training video of Sean Maloney, and any manager worth his salt would look at Sean Maloney and go, do you know what? He's got a lot of experience with Martinez at international level with Belgium. And, you're working with top international players. And then the other clubs that he's been at, he's a fantastic guy to have by your side. Especially the way that he's been motivating players, the way that he has done. But anyway, we think we got to thank Martin O'Neill's wife. Her psychology is brilliant. Telling him I can't do it. Knowing Martin O'Neill would live to prove her wrong. Exactly. But yeah, probably the phone. I'm just reading these. Martin back in the retro. Yeah, he is. The 98, 99 colours, a terrible season. I don't even want to go back. Don't even want to go that and think about that season. Is the Bulls failure for paying 11 million for Engels, not the other way around, just like Tenecti, either trusty? I mean, did we pay over 2 million? I'm going to miss that out. Martin wants 6 players minimum. I said that I think we're looking at least we need 7 players in just to get the squad up to some kind of. Yeah, I heard that Kevin Keegan had cancer, and we wish him well. Obviously, Newcastle United put out a statement that says that Kevin Keegan has cancer, and Kevin Keegan's a man that will always be known for one of the biggest meltdowns ever. I mean, I know that we laugh about Sevconian meltdowns over the year, but I think the man who put meltdowns as a thing on television had to be Kevin Keegan, and he'll forever be known for that meltdown against Fergus United, where he would absolutely love it. Absolutely love it if they could beat them, but they didn't. Anyway, I don't care if it's 6 loans as long as we win the league. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what players would do. Do you think they were going in the right direction? Yes. We've turned the corner. I definitely think that Celtic have turned the corner. If we look at what the fans were asking, and if you look at the direction that the club was going, I was very concerned that the club would dig their heels in. that they would dig their heels in with the manager. Last night at my mum's holiday, just having a beer. I thought that Celtic would maybe go, do you know what? He's had a bad start. The players are not playing ball. Let's get his own players in. They went down the road and got a player in for him that he asked for. And it was my fear that the boards were just walking around with their head in the sand. Do you know, it's like they were pretending they were an ostrich. Let's just stick our head in the sand until the noise shuts up. And that was my biggest fear um, for the board going forward. But hand it to the board, they made the decision. And not only did they make the decision with the manager, they made the decision with Paul Tisdale. That was the biggest shock. The fact that Tisdale, the man who promised us the football doctor was coming in to change everything about Celtic, ultimately was the man that paid the ultimate price. By putting forward Wilfred Nancy as manager, it also relieved him of his duties at Celtic Park. So have the board, are we as a club going in the right direction? I would say that if it's an oil tanker, we're turning the corner. It takes a long time for an oil tanker to turn. And I think that Celtic are going at the pace of an oil tanker. I wouldn't say a snail, because maybe should say a snail. No, because snails could turn faster than an oil tanker. Who would win the race between an oil tanker and a snail and turning? It's going to be a oil snail all day long, isn't it? Anyway, we're talking shite again. That's the way we go in this channel. But yes, I definitely think that we are turning the corner as a club. If we can get the fan base back in, if we can get the 100 and odd Green Brigades that are bands back in, so we can fill out that bottom half of 1-1-1, I think that we will definitely have turned the corner and we're going in the right direction. But then again, that could all come to an absolute massive, massive halt if we make the wrong decision in the summer. So we may be going in the right direction, but there is still a big stop sign at the end of the season that says where next. We're sitting, we've put on sat nav, and the sat nav has no end place. The sat nav just says, let's get to the end of the season. That's it. And that's all Celtic are thinking about. Chris Sutton says that Celtic should only think about short-termism at the club, focusing on putting every single effort into winning the league, trying to win the cup. Could be the fact that we lose the league. Could be the fact that we could win the cup under Martin O'Neill, which would give us something to think about. But yes, I do think that we're going in the right direction. 6 guys desperate to find form for the World Cup. That would be excellent if you could find players that maybe are not getting games for their teams but are in international squads, and if they want to come in on loan to Celtic to see the end of the season, if they come in, if they click, and if they ultimately get us over the line, you never know. You never know. I hope Bill Walker does it for us. He must have been part of the Chelsea 600 million window. We're not quite at that level. The squad is in decline. Yeah, I think we all knew that. Even from Saudi Arabia, where I've just been watching an under 23 match between Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. There's never a dull day when Irishman and Porto comes onto the channel. Our TV camera guy that just watches football around the world. He's got the best job. Of everyone that watches the channel, he's the one that we all wish we had his job, because he gets paid to go and watch football and just, do you know what I mean? It's just an easy life, isn't it? I'm sure it's harder than what it is. Very hard. But absolutely fantastic, and I hope you're doing well, mate. There's nowhere left to decline to. There is, but we're not going there because we got rid of the manager. We were going a long way we were going backwards quicker than Colin McRae could do a turn in his Subaru and Impreza. That's how quick we were going back. Stephen, that's good. Celtic supposedly looking at Bamford. Doesn't need family, has money. I see key company. Nothing like the decline of the early 80s, 90s. No, it's nothing. It's nowhere near that. But there is definite a rebuild. Because if you think about it, even when we get to the summer, if we don't lose Dyson Maeda in this window, we'll lose him the next one. We're going to lose Rio Hitati. His time at Celtic's done. Kasper Schmeichel is gone. We need him. Well, he won't get his. He was only coming in with a 1 year and a 1 year extension if Celtic offered him it, and we did. Sadly, Sinisalo must be raging that he got offered the other year deal. Is Sinisalo ready to step up and be the next holy goalie? The fan bases are out on that. I think that he should be given time, but you don't get time at Celtic. And when you're in a title race and when you're in a fight back, but then again, when you see Sinisalo in training, and you hear him shouting compared to Schmeichel, I know who I'd rather have behind me, and it wouldn't be Schmeichel, it would be Sinisalo. Sinisalo is the guy that he is very vocal when he gets going, a lot more than Kasper, and that's the kind of keeper that you want behind you. Takes no nonsense and tells you fucking to get in position. We're too quick to write off players as a dud. We need to stop. Yes. Call it decline or the neutral end of the current squad's life cycle. It's been at the club for... Yeah. I think it is. It is the end of a cycle. Brendan Rodgers said that we were coming into the end of an era. Brendan Rodgers knew that... I don't think that Brendan Rodgers has it in him to rebuild squads. Generally, I don't think that he has it in him to build something from scratch and watch it flourish into something new. When Brendan Rodgers came in, you had players that had been at the club for a few years. You had Scott Brown and stuff, and these were players that just needed a little bit extra motivation. Brendan Rodgers is good at that motivating factor, but when it comes to bringing in his own players, taking the squad to the next level, he never achieved it, did he? He never really achieved it. And that's the biggest disappointment when you look back over Brendan Rodgers both times at Celtic. Whilst winning trebles was fine, when it comes to European level, that's where we wanted Brendan to stand up and be counted. And he didn't do that. Hopefully, the next manager that does come in, Martin O'Neill will have already started the rebuild. I think that some of the players that are naturally coming to the end of their lifespan at Celtic. James Forrest is another one. James Forrest will hang up his boots at the end of this year. It'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what the club decide to do when it comes to regards to James Forrest. Whether it would be criminal, absolutely criminal, if Celtic do not offer James Forrest some kind of job in the background, whether it be with younger players, whether it be, and that's whether James wants to go down that road. James Forrest might just go, do you know what, I'm fucking done with football. I've done this all my life. I want to go and sit on my arse for a few years and do nothing. But anyway, managed decline this year, rebuild next season. The squad is decimated. As that rebuild means you need to spend money and identify for the long term. Hence the reason that James Bell Walker has been brought into the club, because according to his LinkedIn, that's what he specialises in. He's a recruitment professional with experience in high-level, senior and academy football during a 20-year career, specialism in emerging talent. It ticks all the boxes at Celtic. We're in a rebuild, not just of the main first team squad, but we're in a rebuild of the academy and the B team. Directly involved with scouting and recruitment of young players who have gone on to be full senior internationals and established Premier League players, as well as rebuilding and the building and rebuilding of elite squads. You can't lie on LinkedIn. You can't bullshit on LinkedIn because someone will call you out. Do you know? You will get called out if you're putting bullshit information on that type of platform for the world to see. Do you know? That's not some wee dude sitting on Twitter saying, I can show you all the stats for your player. I'm fucking way better than the fucking staff at Celtic. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, let's move on from that because I do think that we are getting a bit. We need to kick on for here or it'll be decline. Manager decline was last month. Yeah, was that rebuilding is so important in my opinion? Is that? That's an interesting one. James Bell Walker spent 18 months at Chelsea's regional coordinator in South America, where Iniacho is playing. Interesting. We can't rebuild with Martin. He'll leave. It all depends on who. I think you can rebuild to a certain extent with Martin. We can bring in talented players that will fit the bill for the new manager. Do you know? I'm not saying bring in, even if we spend 15 million in this window and bring in 5 players, it will be players that will be put on 3 or 4 year contracts, and that players that the club will think will be good enough for the next manager. There'll be a natural progression of players that will leave the club this summer. We've already mentioned them. So the new manager will have to pick his own players when he comes in, and he'll have to have an idea of the type of players that he wants. I think the board, it's more board incompetence. Ooh. Stephen Johnson's in the house. Can't start a rebuild properly until we have a permanent manager. Martin O'Neill will stabilise us for now. Well, if that's the case, then Martin O'Neill will only be given 3 or 4 loan signings. And that doesn't work out. I don't think that will work. It's more a run of shite signings. Well, Baz, nothing on the board, has done 18 months. Nothing but incompetent managed strategy. It's been a shambles. Yeah, it has been a shambles, but 2 people have left the company. 2 people have left. You can't say that we haven't turned the corner. Do you know, there's been 2 high level people have left the club at boardroom level. Peter Lawwell and the one that we wanted out as well, Tisdale, as well as the manager. So feels like a transition. Manage decline would be a rebuild. Good to see. I'm going to jump through. There's 590 comments. I'm going to jump through these towards the end. Apologies if I've not read your comments. Rodgers was willing to destroy the dreams of Hoop fans to boost his own ego. Should never have been allowed back. Yeah, well, he wasn't he? The money Celtic have spent, it shouldn't be a squad decline. The players have been well under par this season. Does that come down to certain players wanting away? Does it come down to Dice Maida not putting a shift in because he wants away? Do you know, it was the same with Kyogo. Kyogo was missing open goals. He wanted away. Kyogo had the chance to score 3 goals the night before he left Celtic, and he put them wide. 3 glaring chances in the Champions League, and he put the 3 of them wide. And then he was sold the very next day. Players have it within them to just, I just missed the target. And to think that they don't, you know, yes, players are underperforming, and you never know. Maybe Martin O'Neill will be. Well, Martin O'Neill is the manager to change the players' attitude, because Martin O'Neill, the proof is in the pudding. Martin O'Neill improved the players. He improved the attitude of the players. Maloney, Fozzie, and all the backroom staff. They improved the attitude of the players. The players' attitude stank because they didn't get on with Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers, they could see, was throwing the players under a bus, was giving them no confidence at all, was blaming them for everything. But yet Martin O'Neill comes in and said, "You're actually good players. Let's go and play football." And then they played well. Okay, we scraped a win against St Mirren, 93rd minute. Callum McGregor does what Callum McGregor does, takes a shot for the end of the box in the back of the net. Yes, we knew the issues with the players. We knew that players that were at the club weren't clicking, they weren't performing. We knew that we were 2 strikers down. We've went through this full season having sold our 2 best strikers at the club and not replacing them. And everyone said in the summer, it's fine, we've got Dyson Maeda. It's fine, we don't need a striker. We've got Dyson. Oh yes, we do need a striker. And it's been proven this season that we need a striker because Dyson Maeda is just, his head's not been in it. So Martin O'Neill now coming back to the club full time is well within his right to sit in a media conference and say, I could say I'd love Dyson to be here to the end of the season, but he could be gone tomorrow. That's putting the onus on Dyson and his agent. Martin O'Neill wants a quick decision with this one. It's either you're here at the end of the season, if you're going, go now. That's the way that I read into Martin O'Neill. And then for Martin O'Neill to turn around and say, I'll tell you at the next press conference what's going on with Dyson Maeda. It's a manager that's no fucking about. It's a manager that wants answers for the players. Are you happy here? Do you want to be here? And if not, you're out the door. And the quicker you're out the door, the better, as far as I'm concerned. And then I can concentrate on the 18 games that I've got left to the end of the season. I can bring in players that want to be here, even if it's only to the end of the season. Or if we can get the right type of player that is going to have a bit longevity, and then I can pass over a rejuvenated squad slightly. Because what Martin O'Neill will do is he'll give the players the confidence. And yes, we might not win the league. But at least if we don't win the league, we'll have players that were way more confident than what they would have been under Wilfred Nancy. But I still think that we can win the league. We need a proper captain like Bruni that gets tackles in. Well, there's still talk about Kalmack. There is still talk about Kalmack going to follow Brendan Rodgers. I'm going to jump through this because there's 600 odd comments. I apologise if I don't see them. Maeda was never a striker. No, he wasn't that. Danny Cassie is in the house. Just doing a super chat just to let everybody know that he is here. Is anyone after Maeda now? We don't know. That's up to the agent to find him a club, just like it was in the summer. His agent found him Wolfsburg, and the rest is history. I'm more interested in, I think Yang, if we lose Yang, I think that he could be the bigger performer in the second half of the season, especially under Martin O'Neill. I think Yang playing in the front 3 again rather than playing further back. And if we go to a back 4 again, where we've got fullbacks that can actually do their job in the correct manner rather than playing in the back 3 where they're not overlapping. Kieran Tierney, the best was taken out of Kieran Tierney when you play him in a back 3. You put him in a back 4 where he can overlap the winger. He needs to, Dyson Maeda needs to start talking to Tierney because they were like passing ships in the night in games at some point. You would see Tierney give the ball to Dyson Maeda. Tierney would run forward, expecting the reverse pass from Dyson, and then Dyson would hit it back into the middle of the park to Rio Hatate, and Rio Hatate would kick it back to the defender. and Kieran Tierney would have to go running all the way back. Could be a conspiracy, but I think they two are at it. They've been at it all season. So is anyone after Daizen Maeda? I don't think we'll get to know that, and until he's gone. Martin O'Neill even said that. Do you know? There's no point in saying that he could be here when tomorrow he's out the building, because Martin O'Neill knows these things. We've given ourselves the best chance with Martin O'Neill, and he will leave the next manager with a good foundation for a rebuild. This is very true. Happy New Year, Baz. Martin O'Neill will do his best to motivate this team. He's the best man for the job. He is the best man for the job. Everyone's glad to see Danny Cassie back. Paul McStay, no brainer. I don't think that Paul McStay is even involved in football at any level. I don't know what Paul McStay does now, but I don't think Paul McStay is really interested in coming back in any capacity to Celtic, other than coming back for the Celtic Foundation stuff. Agree, Baz. Under Martin O'Neill, Yang will be flying. Martin O'Neill knows how to OKKT. I think that Yang is the one to watch. I think going into the second half of the season, especially that goal that he scored. That goal that he scored at the weekend was phenomenal. And if you can just get him playing out wide, get him staying out wide on that line, taking on players, getting a full back that's better than Tony Ralston. Hopefully this other guy that's came in puts pressure on Tony Ralston, and he's better than Tony Ralston. And and we get the ball out to Yang as much as the Yang misses have a sister for young Johnny Kenny. I think Maloney and Fozzie should be given the management job next season if O'Neill doesn't want to stay for another season. That's an interesting one, because that is an interesting concept. And sometimes what you're looking for is sitting right in front of you. And let's just see. And I'm sure that Martin O'Neill will put in a very good word for Sean Maloney and Fozzie if they excel in the next 4 months at their jobs. Do I think Martin O'Neill would be within his right to turn around to Dermot and go, you're spending all this time looking for a younger manager that's looking at Celtic as a 4-year plan. You do know that you've got guys here that pretty much fit the bill for what you're looking for them to do. But the only fear that I have of that is that if the going gets tough in European context, that the fans turn on Maloney. Fans always turn on the Scottish contingent of our player base. And I think when it would come to a manager, I think that Maloney might get it tight on a European context if things didn't go well. But you never know. Great chat from Martin O'Neill regarding the truce with the fans and the board. Yes, it was fantastic, and let's hope that something can be arranged this week, because Martin O'Neill he just wants what's the best for the club. Dyson was looking for inside runs of Taylor. Yep. And not having Taylor in that midfield, coming in that midfield position like he did for so long in Celtic, you've now got Daizen Maeda trying to be there, and it's not working as good, is it? Don't start saying that we should get Taylor back. Yang plays better as a Kenny, could do the same players around time. Yep, I don't want to use Yang full stop right now. You don't want to lose Yang full stop. It's changed days for Yang, isn't it? Burnley beating United, and I thought we were in turmoil. Yeah, United are totally goosed, aren't they? Martin O'Neill must earn his money now more. Joking with interviews just to get on with it. I think Martin O'Neill knows exactly how hard this job. Yeah, he stays in Australia. I think that Martin O'Neill knows exactly what's required, and he's taken it very, very serious. Hence the reason that you'll see Martin O'Neill going to games over the next week or so to watch players that may be Scottish based. Danny Cassie's good. No worries, Danny. It's all good. He hangs his girlfriend over again. I'm going to jump through these. Maloney would do a good job for Celtic. It's an interesting one. I wonder if he would. Maybe ask that quote poll tomorrow. We need to get whatever we can for Rio. His time is up. Yeah, I think so. Get Martin on the board. I think definitely having him as. I mean, would he want to be on the board? I don't think that he would. He said that, that AGM will be his last ever. He says it will definitely be his last because he will not be here next season. I don't think Martin O'Neill has the appetite to be on the board for Celtic. I don't think he needs that stress in his life. I think he's happy to come in and have the swan song of his football career. He himself feels that he still has a little bit to give in terms of football manager. Definitely, mate. He's one of the ones that I had on the thumbnail before Martin O'Neill was announced. Was the Motherwell manager, along with McKenna, Scott Brown, and Martin O'Neill. And then I had to abruptly change that thumbnail when it was released there and then that Martin O'Neill had got the job. So yeah, I think that the Motherwell manager may well be a good manager for us, but I mean, would Motherwell want to leave him? Would they want to leave Motherwell? The employed lens, so don't count out Maloney. Yeah, I think that Maloney could be the hidden gem within. I always said that the pathway manager job for Maloney is way under his pay grade. I couldn't understand why someone with his experience in coaching was reduced to a job that someone with his ability, with Sean Maloney's ability, that's a proven ability. He's got a proven CV of an ability to be a fantastic coach, whether it be maybe not first team coach or manager, but he has the CV to prove it. And I always thought it was weird that he came to Celtic as pathway manager when Darren O'Dea left. Darren O'Dea's went to be assistant manager in Swansea. Sean Maloney must have been thinking, why did I not get that gig? He was only pathway manager. Maybe Sean Maloney went, fuck it, I'll just take the pathway noise. So this fella from Canada, he's a defender or midfielder. I heard he was a defensive mid. And it looks like he is a defender. We did put some stats up earlier from Data Boys. He is a defender. His accurate long passes is at 78%. His defensive duels won is at 79%. I'll just get that there, 79%. His accurate short and medium passes is at 78%. This is by Data Boys on Twitter. And his interceptions, his defensive interceptions at 100%. So the stats that this guy has put on, this is for this season. This is the UEFA ranked stats. Seems to say that he's quite a good player. Progressive runs per 90 is at 74%. So it seems to be what Celtic are looking for, especially the fact that James Bell Walker is an expert in picking out these type of players. And I think that that's why there could be a new dawn to the way that Celtic are going into the transfer market. They may be looking at players that are not or have the potential to go on to be full internationals for their country. So I think that we'll be looking at players that a bit like, I don't know, I'm going to say it because it's the exact type of player that you thought you were going to get when we got A player from Portugal, as in Paulo Bernardo. Paulo Bernardo was captain of the under-21 side, and you're thinking that this guy, he's obviously, because he's captain of the under-21 side, Portugal obviously think that he's got the potential to be a player in the first team squad. It's a shame for Paulo Bernardo that he came to Celtic, and you know, well, we all know how that story's going, which is. Hi, Craig Beaton worked not that long ago. He said Maloney has been unlucky with the clubs that he's managed. Both Hibs and Wigan were basket cases. Yes, because after Maloney, they went for Neil Lennon and then they sacked Neil Lennon. So anyway, is the Canadian boy deal done? No, it's not deal done yet. But Celtic are in a favourable position to get the player that's been suggested. Dyson's going nowhere, says Danny Cassidy. If Maloney gets the job, Forrest, there's a good one. Jerry. That's a cracker. That is a cracker. If Maloney gets the job in the summer, gives James Forrest the pathway manager job. That's a good shout, by the way. That is a good shout. It keeps James Forrest at the club. I'm not suggesting that James Forrest will ever go on to manage Celtic. There's more chance of Scott Brown. But James Forrest would be another fantastic addition to the club to have as pathway manager. And if he follows on the great work that Sean Maloney's done in that position, talking to other teams, he was in talks with Scott Brown's club. He's been in talks with several other clubs around Scotland to loan out youngsters to them and stuff. So, and Sean Maloney knows what it's like to come through playing for Celtic. He ticks all the boxes, doesn't he? Everyone knows what Sean Maloney's done at Celtic and through his career. Everyone knows what James Forrest has done, and he's been a one-man club. To give him the pathway manager to sit and talk, there'd be nobody better, really, than James Forrest, coming to your house to see your mum and dad and talk about your future as a young player and how he wants to plan the way that you get into the first team. Whether Celtic do it or not is a completely different question. We'll see a different team this Saturday once Martin Rings changes. Will we see a different team? I think we'll see a different formation. I don't think Dykes isn't the answer for us. Surely not. I mean, seriously? Really? It's the same agency company as Abada and O'Reilly. That's an interesting one. Is this for the Canadian bloke? Martin O'Neill has a full week's training with the team before Saturday. He does. And it'll be interesting to see. But you heard them shouting on the training video. This is more like the midfield that I know. This is the Celtic midfield that I know. So I think we'll see a lot faster football. There'll not be 2 or 3 touches on the ball. It'll be one touch pass. And if you do take too long on the ball, you're going to have Fozzie on the sidelines letting you know that you've taken too many chances. And there's not many players. If you look at when Martin O'Neill came into the club the last time, you had Austin Trusty in a game where he was in Brendan Rodgers mode for a second and he got the ball and he was going to turn and put it back to Schmeichel and he had second thoughts. He was like, oh shit, ooh, that's the wrong manager. And he turned around and played the ball forward. So you'll get us going back into that. How quick can they ultimately regain that confidence? Can the manager instill that confidence that was kind of ripped away from them under Wilfred Nancy, whether it be through confusion, through lack of motivation, through lack of direction under Wilfred Nancy? Maybe the players will just go, maybe the players are sitting and going, thank God that's over with. Let's get back to playing proper football. And I think that can invigorate the players going forward as well. Not too many actually make up the step up from under 21 to the Portuguese squad, to be honest. Yeah, this is true. But that's the way it is. Celtic fans love a cheeky Irishman as manager. This is true. Dan Danny Cassie says that players are coming to us. Donegal born. Should have to babysit. Shouldn't have to babysit me either. He plays or doesn't. As long as Fozzie is kept with the new manager next season, don't care, says Kieran. Um, Interesting comment. Even if Bernardo was a starter, he'd find it hard to break in. Yeah, I mean, it's the same with. I think it's only really Spain that's going down the road of really. You're going to have to be really talented to get into, and you're not going to be at Celtic. Let's face it. If Paulo Bernardo was to try and break into the Portuguese squad, he's not going to be at Celtic, is he? I mean, even Matt O'Reilly, from the low level of MK Dons to the rise of his time at Celtic, never walked into his national team squad. Get behind Martin to bring back the title? No, which is I know I'm not back in Scotland, not yet, not for a couple of months. Martin O'Neill back Celtic long term future. And Dykes is the kind of player that we need, as our players are lightweights. Can he be as prolific as. I'm only going to say this because Lee Griffiths was Scottish. And can Lyndon Dykes be as prolific as what Lee Griffiths was? And I don't know. I just the only time that I see Lyndon Dykes play is for Scotland, and that's not been many times that I've watched Scotland over the last couple of years. Anyway, I'm going to end the poll this evening. God, I've been on for an hour and 7 minutes. How time just flies when you're having fun. Is this now a rebuild year or managed decline? 71% have went with rebuild, 29% say managed decline, with over 362 votes in the poll there. Right. Anyway. What's my plans for 2026? I can't tell you that on this channel. I've already made one, actually. If you read the comment section, there is one change for 2026. I have reverted back to the 8:30 a.m. slot that we ran for so many years. For the first video of the day, I changed it to 9 o'clock. Just because it would give me half an hour later in bed, to be honest. But I am reversing it back to the earlier time of 8:30, which was very successful for the channel in its previous when we did the 8:30 videos before. And a lot of people have been saying, we're missing out some of the videos in the morning because you're starting at 9 o'clock. Anyway, Dykes is Australian trained, so we should be interested in him. No idea, but yeah, that's the one change that's coming for the channel. It's to take the channel up to the next level, and then, as you also know, we have changed some of. I need to sort out this type of thing, so that this type of screen runs every single day, not just for the watch alongs. That's something that I'm working on, and now that we're over Three Kings Day, and it's back to work, and I'll get the guy who's dealing with all this side of it. We will be working on that this week. So that's my plans for 2026, is to get the channel a bit more interactive and things, and take it to the next level. Anyway, what's yours? Tell me tomorrow. On that note, have 5 uploads a day and arguing with any cunt that questions his sources. I never argue. I never have sources. The sources, all the information's out there. And I never argue with folk on this channel. Just ban them. No, I don't. Anyway, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world. Brown Warriors getting banned.